Let's get more now on the situation in Zimbabwe. Its generals say they are not staging a coup, but they've taken over the state broadcaster, ZBC, and insisted that they're not attempting to overthrow the government, but instead targeting criminals around President Robert Mugabe. The army insists that the 93-year-old is safe and sound. While the South African president, Jacob Zuma, has just given a statement in which he called for calm and restraint. He said President Mugabe had told him in a phone call earlier today that he was under house arrest, but fine.
Given the seriousness of the situation, I've taken a decision to send an envoy to be able to contact the leaders of the Defense Force who have undertaken these operations, but also to meet with President Mugabe so that we have a more clear picture of what is happening in Zimbabwe. I will also be sending an envoy to His Excellency President of Angola to brief him as the chairperson of the organ of SADC on peace and security, so that there is a closer interaction between us and the Zimbabweans. I am hoping that the Defense Force will not move and do more damage, that they will be able to respect the Constitution of Zimbabwe as well as the people of Zimbabwe, so that this situation does not go beyond the situation where it is now, particularly because we are now in contact with them as well as the president. We are hoping that this situation is going to be controlled so that peace and stability comes back to Zimbabwe.
The South African President Jacob Zuma, who spoke to Robert Mugabe by phone earlier today. Well, let's get more reaction now to the situation. There on the line is Jeffrey Moyo, a journalist working in the capital, Harare. Jeffrey, what's the situation like where you are?
Right now in the capital, as I'm speaking to you, the soldiers were mounting their army vehicles, especially along Nelson Mandela, leading to Parliament building. But they've just started relaxing the security that they picked up along that road that is closer to the Parliament building. Earlier on, they were actually blocking people from using the road leading to Parliament. And they were at the back of Parliament, there is Mugabe's offices in the Mutapa building where Mugabe's offices are housed. The soldiers are mounting their army vehicles and they are armed. They are blocking people from getting anywhere closer to the Mugabe offices. And but surprisingly, some of the soldiers, or most of the soldiers, are just friendly and cheerful as they order civilians not to use the roads that they have blocked.
The army is describing this not as a coup, but as a bloodless transition. I suppose there's a big question mark over how long this military control will continue and at what point it might transition to civilian rule.
What I can safely say here is that the army has announced that this is not a military takeover of government, but they said that they are trying to fish out some people whom they suspect were misleading Mr Mugabe in the way that he was governing this country, in the way he was chasing out some fellow comrades who fought along with him during the liberation struggle. They are saying that those actions were influenced by a faction called the Generation 40, who included Professor Jonathan Moyo, who included people like Xavier Kasukuere and others. And they are saying those must be fished out, those must be taken out of ZANU-PF so that they pave way for the fresh leadership of the party. We don't know really what they are negotiating with Mugabe. Rumor is that they are negotiating with him, but we don't know what are those negotiations really.
Okay, Jeffrey Moyo, thank you very much for your time. Jeffrey Moyo, journalist in the Zimbabwean capital, Harare, and apologies, there were a few issues with the sound on that line.